I just cannot get over that stat that at the grand finals, Autumn was undefeated and Austin was X-1, and they played in this exact same situation. That is so cool. Unreal.
Unreal indeed. Austin, of course, going on to win the whole damn thing. As we're going to get things underway here, taking a look at the opening hands. Conspicuous Snoop and Goblin Chieftain in the opening hand here for Autumn. Up top, though, also going to see a mulligan from Austin.
Two decks that can mulligan pretty aggressively, though. They're very, very proactive, very powerful. Don't need a ton of cards to get their deck going. So not the biggest deal.
Not the biggest deal. We got Selfless Savior, all that glitters. We got to have the mulligan pretty hard with this list, but unfortunately not finding lands in that. Otherwise, all right hand is going to be forced to keep a four card hand here. Yeah.
Ugh.
That's the struggles with this deck. As much as Maria loves it, you got to find either Stram or the Core Spirit Dancer to have, to get off to the start that you really want to here.
Yeah, we know Maria is not happy at this very particular moment. That's for sure.
Man.
Staggering Insight, one of those cards, like Curious Obsession, that can just get you right back into the game, and 3 turns down the line, you look and you're like, okay, I mulligan this hand? Like, this is completely fine. And Austin prioritizing that card as well. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh, drawing into Core Spirit Dancer. That's big. Hello. All right, so Austin's going to be just fine. And knowing that there's not that much interaction from the Goblin side of things, they just kind of do their own thing, try to get to Muxus as quick as possible and go. Austin might be able to pull something together here now that the Core Spirit Dancer is an option.
Yeah, I mean, next turn, just Austin's able to essentially draw 3 cards. 1 off the draw step, 1 from playing Staggering Insight, and then connecting with it. So that's, already getting you to unmulliganing here. One thing I do want to bring up is Autumn, in her 7-0 interview yesterday with Day 9, said that this is probably the one matchup that she didn't want to play, was against the Azorius Aurus deck. So we'll see how it plays out here moving forward.
I did see, though, Frank Austin in chat was saying that the Aura's deck was 0-3 versus Goblins. So maybe it's Goblins' day today, as we see a big old chunk of damage dealt there to Austin's life total.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like a train wreck matchup in any regards. And if Autumn didn't say that, I would have actually thought that Goblins is favored, just because Muxus can go so far over the top of this deck. And neither deck is really interacting with each other at all.
Yeah, they're just kind of like 2 ships passing in the night, just doing their own thing.
2 ships smacking in the night here, just hitting each other as hard as possible.
Of course, as we're going to see Staggering Insight here, Core Spirit Dancer trigger, going to draw a card and start smacking away with this lifelink. One thing I would say is that with the amount of lifelink sources in this deck, that's possibly why the Goblins deck struggles with it so much, especially if you can give something Vigilance and lifelink. Whatever you're throwing at them, they can just, pad their life total to the point that the amount of Goblins you have is irrelevant. So we'll see what happens here.
Totally agree. One of the most frustrating things ever is being an aggro deck that's like attacking for 5, then 7, then 9, and your opponent's just gaining the same amount of life back. It's like, okay, I'm getting nowhere.
Pretty much, as we're going to see Goblin Chieftain number 2 hit the battlefield. And Herald's Horn on top of the library, so no Muxus to speak of just yet.
Yeah, no Muxus, but this is going to be huge. It's going to be a huge attack with that 3rd Goblin Chieftain next turn. But, like we're seeing on the other side, that is still a lot of lifelink. Austin really, really wants just basically any aura for next turn to boost up that Core Spirit Dancer. And then you got to think Austin is favored in this position.
Yeah, it's a big old chunk of damage. One poor little Skirk Prospector is going to hang back here on defense.
One thing I do want to bring attention to that we're probably going to see here pretty soon is Skirk Prospector's interaction with lifelink creatures is quite good, where you can just block the creature, sack it for mana, not use the mana in any regards, but then you do not gain the life. So right now, Autumn is just thinking, is this the turn where I want to hold back and prevent that lifelink? Decides not, decides to just get in there and maybe present lethal next turn.
Yeah, I like the attack here because unless there's an aura off the top, sure, it's a big old chunk of damage and lots of life gain, but there's no aura to speak of in the draw step there for Austin. Just a second Core Spirit Dance, which isn't doing a whole heck of a lot right now. So now he's in the position of, should I stay or should I go now?
Nice reference. Nice reference.
Gonna get in there with a Core Spirit Dancer, draw a card of Staggering Insight, hopefully find something.
Yeah, some aura.
Curious Obsession. Okay, that's another card draw.
Yep, not bad. Definitely something to play. Curious Obsession, does have that extra text where if you didn't attack, you get rid of it, but it does still see that a creature attacked.
For sure. So 2 cards drawn here. What do we find? Land number 3 in hand, and an Arcane Flight. All right.
That's pretty good. Just another thing to strap to that Core Spirit Dancer, just to make sure it can block and still live. And then you got the lifelinkers here to be able to have pretty good effective blockers here. So that was huge by Austin. He needed that Curious Obsession or any other kind of aura off that first connect from the Core Spirit Dancer.
Yeah, Staggering Insight really putting in work, finding another copy of it through the triggers, and all of a sardine, we have a 6/8 flyer. This is why this deck is sometimes very good against goblins.
Yeah. No, I mean, it really does make sense. And I want to remind everyone, this was a mulligan to 4 magic cards.
Yeah. Turns out this deck don't care. All right, can we string together a Goblin Matron into a Muxus? I mean, we can. Think so.
We can, but you'd have to sacrifice your entire board.
Yeah.
Which is not great, but it is available right now. But we've seen Autumn go for, different lines instead of giving away a lot of her resources just to cast the powerful 6-drop.
I'm wondering here if he just doesn't have lethal either. Just, excuse me, if Autumn doesn't have lethal here.
Yeah, I think this is lethal. Because you have the trick here, it works just like on offense and Oh, wait, because you have to sack the Goblin Chieftains. So you could sack these creatures so you don't gain the life, or we can just connect. Okay, yeah, never mind. That's just lethal. Yeah.
Yeah, just enough damage to get through there with that Goblin Chieftain is buffing the entire team. Getting the job done are these little goblins. Now, let's talk about sideboard. What do we do against this? What do we do against either deck from both players?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that both decks want to transition a little bit from being basically no interaction to interacting here. So we do see the Abrades coming in for Autumn. That makes a lot of sense. And then Hushbringers were pulled up right away from Austin. Hushbringer's a great card here. Just shutting down Muxus, very good at shutting down Matron. Shuts down a lot of cards there. Makes sense why Autumn has to have some removal here.
So just a few tweaks being made to the sideboards, eyeing out that Disdainful Stroke 2 potentially. Is that something we'd want to bring in against Muxus?
I wouldn't think so on first glance, just because this Auras deck does not really fancy leaving up mana, really wants to just tap out and just strap every aura every single turn. There's those key turns where if you can stop a Muxus, you're probably going to win, but it doesn't hold that much value, I don't think, especially with Austin being on the play. I could see on the draw you want to bring something like that in to just be a little bit more reactive when you're a little bit more disadvantaged because of the draw.
So game number 1 going in Autumn's favor. The Goblins just overpowering it, having access to all of those Lord effects, just pushing through damage that Austin couldn't have accounted for.
Yeah, and I think it's the game came down to such a little small detail, and that was that Austin drew that last aura after attacking instead of for the draw step. If you draw it for your draw step, you get to equip Curious Obsession to the lifelink creature, and then you got the Arcane Flight as well. That would have been an extra 6 life you would have gained, and maybe we would have been okay.
All right, but this hand is Snapkeep finding Core Spirit Dancer as well as SRAM Senior Edificer off the draw. So this hand is looking very nice indeed for Austin. SRAM Senior Edificer coming down first.
One thing I really love about Austin's list that I haven't been seeing from other Auras decks is other people were only playing 2 SRAMs
Mhm.
And Austin's just playing 4. I mean, that is what made this deck a lot better to me, was the inclusion of this card from Kaladesh. And it never made sense to me why people just didn't jam 4 of that card in there. I like that Austin thought the same way on that one.
Yeah, and you saw how hard he had to mulligan just to find something useful. Eventually, even didn't find one of the 8 cards that have this effect of drawing cards each time you cast an aura. So,
Yep.
the inclusion of all 8 of those creatures, I think, makes a big difference.
Totally agree.
All right, so we have Ironcrag Feet in hand to get Muxus out next turn.
Yeah, the fireworks are probably going to be flying next turn for Autumn.
That is going to be absolutely terrifying if Autumn hits a bunch of good stuff off the top of the library, but that's not going to slow Austin down. He's just going to keep doing his thing. He's got Curious Obsession, All That Glitters. You can actually get 2 All That Glitters down there. That's an extra +2/+2 per aura on this Core Spirit Dancer.
Yeah, I need to get my calculator out to see how big this Core Spirit Dancer was. Carry the 3 divided by pi. Yeah, it's too large. It's too large. Yeah.
I believe it's what the cool kids Core Swole.
Yeah.
Yes, 1 Swole Core Spirit Dancer.
All right. Yeah, been hitting the gym.
Let's kick things off here with one of these All That Glitters.
And of note, this time we do have the Vigilance ability added to this Core Spirit Dancer for possible Muxus shenanigans that you maybe even just be able to block Muxus if it were to gain haste next turn and just, eat it, essentially. Maybe Muxus isn't even big enough to stop this Core Spirit Dancer.
Core Spirit Dancer finds another one. Curious Obsession can be stuck on as well to draw some more cards, but
3, 4...
I mean, there's like no interactions. There's no real consideration to leave up the mana for Seed of Life's Bounty, except to protect against, combat damage.
Yeah, I believe this would be the All That Glitters would add another 6 here. 7. I believe it would add 6. So this should be 16. Hooray! I did it. Well, with the 1/1. With the 1/1.
Insane amount of damage.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Right. Well, let's go Ironcrag Feet time, shall we? Muxus, you want to come hang out and get some dumb stuff on the battlefield?
Yeah, we can just. I don't know if. Do we just cast it without the feat? Is there any advantage to casting it? Yeah, I think you just cast Muxus here.
Yes.
And here we go. You ready?
Yes. Muxus, please do not whiff.
This better be a good one.
And a roll of the wheel brings out a bunch of hasty friends as well as Goblin Matron to go and find another Goblin that wasn't particularly inspired, I'll say.
No, that wasn't insane. But one thing is that Core Spirit Dancer is not hovering above the ground. So it is not a flyer right now. So until Austin finds an Arcane Flight or something like that, it doesn't matter too much yet. It's just going to have to be blocked every single turn. Or never mind. I guess we can just give it pro red. Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, that's true.
Austin found the line.
Bounty, able to give it protection from red, swinging on in 13 points of damage, and the second game goes to Austin Bursavich.
Impressive stuff.
So that is game number 2 in the books. We're going to take a very short commercial break, but when you come back, we'll see how game 3 concludes between these 2 players. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't think anything from Autumn's side. We'll see if Austin decides to bring in like Disdainful Strokes that he was hovering over. Doesn't really look like it. And honestly, so far, this matchup has just been really influenced by the play. And honestly, that is what happens with 2 decks that are really just all proactive, not trying to interact. They're naturally going to be a lot better on the play. So we'll, we got to put the advantage in Autumn's favor here.
We do indeed. Let's see if we can get that Muxus down, and let's see if it can be a little bit more whelming, not as underwhelming as it was.
Yeah.
In that last game.
That Muxus would have had to been so good because you just had to win that turn. So it had to be like 3 chieftains and a Cranko or something. You know, it had to be something absurd like that.
Yeah, that Seed of Life's bounty just being able to squeak through the Core
Yeah.
Spirit Dancer and get the win there. So
Mhm.
let's go. Game number 3 underway. Take a look at the opening hands. That's not what you want to see, but a Hushbringer is potentially something that we might consider. Nope, it's going to go back
Ugh.
2, and we're going to find 2 Core Spirit Dancers as well as a SRAM Senior Artificer.
Yeah, that one's got to be a keep. Even Autumn's hand isn't great. It's not super proactive here. It is definitely more reactive. You know, a hand like that on the draw is completely fine, but Autumn's going to need land number 3 here, you know, pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah, Mind Stone will help for
That
sure.
counts.
All right, so what do you see happening here from Autumn's side of things? Ideally, we'd like to find one of our early goblins like the Wily Goblin, potentially getting a treasure token to help cheat Muxus out earlier.
Mhm.
Do we just fire off a Goblin Matron to go and find something relevant, or is it just Goblin Chieftain all the way?
Yeah, on turn 3, we're probably, if we get a land from Autumn's side, I wouldn't be shocked if it was just Mind Stone go to leave up a braid. Right now, Autumn's hand is not super aggressive, so she's just trying to maintain the battlefield here. We were definitely looking for a land there, and now it's the tough choice because Autumn really respected and valued leaving up 2 mana there for a braid, even on a turn where the 2 mana creature that Austin could play, a Core Spirit Dancer or a SRAM, you could untap and abrade it. So
Yeah.
I was slightly more inclined to Mind Stone last turn because you knew you could untap and abrade whatever creature, but then you get put in the weird spot for the next turn that you don't have a braid mana available in case they do go Core Spirit Dancer plus equipment, and then everything's just out of range for the rest of the game.
Yeah, so now you can see Autumn just deliberating as she hovers over this Mind Stone, perhaps something that would have preferred to have come down earlier, like you mentioned.
Went for the Mind Stone, so now if Austin gets a land, this is huge. Oh,
Doesn't find a land, though.
Huge.
Gonna commit the second Core Spirit Dancer to the battlefield, and a deep sigh of relief there from Autumn, as she's now going to deal with this pesky creature on the battlefield.
Yep. We saw when Autumn tapped out for that. It was I know what I'm vulnerable to, and luckily Austin didn't do it. You know, play the Core Spirit Dancer plus any equipment would have made this a really tough game.
Would have indeed, but now we get to play the Hushbringer and put a cartouche on it. It doesn't keep it out of a braid range, but it is gonna get a couple bodies down and stop Muxus from doing Muxus things.
Oh my god, the third abrade here. At the exact turn that we needed it from Autumn, because that Hushbringer was going to get out of range. That was an unbelievable draw.
Excellent draw there from Autumn. Big smile on her face.
Wow.
And Goblin Matron is now going to go and find another goblin from the battlefield, from the library, I should say, and bring it to hand. Gem Palm Incinerator.
I like that.
Gonna be, yeah, I like that too. Let's get some goblins on the battlefield and let's do some damage equal to the number of them.
Yeah, it's basically Goblin Matron searching for the 4th abrade. That's pretty much what Goblin Incinerator is here, just in case there's another Hushbringer. Now we're gonna knock the top of the deck if you're Autumn and be like, is there a land for Muxus?
Ideally, that's what Autumn is hoping for. Now, this deck, it typically doesn't do very well playing reactively, but Autumn has just found exactly what she's needed every single draw step here, keeping Austin from doing anything crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, it just goes back to that keep where I maybe questioned it a little bit, but the abrades just seemed that important. And with how the game played out, they ended up just being phenomenal.
So knowing that there's a Gem Palm Incinerator in hand, not going to suit up this little 1/1 too much, but we'll get in here for 2 points of damage. Unless this Goblin Matron jumps in the way. Looking to draw some more cards here is Austin.
Yeah, I think what this screams to me, if we're Austin, is post-combat, regardless of a block or not, we're going to play that Glacial Fortress and put that Lurrus into the hand.
For sure. And then Lurrus can start doing some shenanigans.
Exactly.
Card drawn, another Glacial Fortress.
And Lurrus of note, next turn can go Lurrus into one of these core spirit dancers, get it back. That's why these Abrades, they're good, but they're always, oh, there's the land.
Land
Here
time.
we
All right,
go.
Muxus. Is the game just going to be over right here, right now? It's potentially that. Let's see. Oh,
Oh, what a letdown.
Well, you know what? It's another chance at it. It's another Muxus. It's like, would you like to
Yeah.
continue your save game? Sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine anything but Muxus here. But here is the problem. Lurrus can also get Hushbringer.
Yes.
And Lurrus can get Hushbringer every turn, essentially. If Autumn wants to fire out that Gem Palm Incinerator on Hushbringer, next turn it's coming right back. You can try to time it where you do it at Austin's end step and then untap and cast the powerful Goblin King, but
I think that's why we're seeing a little bit of consideration here for Krenko Mob Boss, just to swarm this battlefield with creatures instead of going for the, spin it to win it with Muxus.
Yeah, sidestepping Hushbringer altogether. Hushbringer does not do anything to Krenko, and Krenko can just take over a game.
So seeing that Krenko has been brought to hand, that's got to tell Austin that that's exactly what Autumn is thinking. That Lurrus is coming down next turn. Hushbringer is going to be the play. Is there anything that he would do differently now?
Well, the one thing that is a big consideration here is that Curious Obsession's second text is that if you don't attack, you lose Curious Obsession, and the attack is not good right now. The attack, you're losing the Curious Obsession anyways because Muxus just blocks. So that's what Austin is thinking right now. Can I play Lurrus, bring back an enchantment to equip to that creature? So I see two plays here. You go Lurrus, Cartouche from the graveyard on the 2/2, and then Cartouche from your hand, and then you can attack because Muxus would even be a chump blocker because of first strike. Or you go Lurrus plus Hushbringer and just give up the Curious Obsession and move on. I think those are the two options. Or as lead to give it protection from red. But that play seems like the worst of the three.
Yeah, potentially could see either one of those options here. Let's see what Austin goes for. If we're going to see Lurrus of the Dream Den come on down and suit up this little 2/2 as best as he can.
And that's the weird kind of dynamic of that Goblin Matron. If Austin were to do the play of just strapping up a Cartouche to this thing, then you would have rather got Muxus. Yeah. But with the if Autumn were to go get Muxus, then Austin puts Hushbringer into play. So it's a weird dance there. Yeah. That really doesn't work out well for Autumn no matter what. Oh, interesting.
Right. Giving up the Curious Obsession there. We can just replay it with Lurrus next turn. So, Austin won't be too broken up about that.
Somehow the three plays
not going to survive.
Somehow the three plays that I suggested, Austin still went with a fourth one. Unreal.
Hey, that's magic for you. There's always so many options. All these different lines that the players could take. And here we're going to see Krenko Mob Boss, Goblin Chieftain, and a whole bunch of itty-bitty little goblins coming down.
Yeah, I mean, this is huge. Austin made a play to protect Lurrus here to try to play a long game.
I don't think he's going to get one of those.
Autumn is not trying to play said long game, that's for sure. This looks great for Autumn.
Autumn's just like, where's that big red button? Let me push that one and see what happens.
Yeah.
Just doing some quick mental maths. Is Autumn Burchett at the bottom of your screen, piloting Goblins here in round number 8 of the Zendikar Rising Championship. It's not game over right here. We got enough blockers in the way to...
Yeah, we saw a little head nod. We saw a little head nod from Austin there. Maybe not happy with how this worked out. Even the Cartouche play, the double Cartouche play, would have allowed that creature to connect or at least still be alive. But even at this point, it still looks pretty rough with this battlefield.
Would have gotten some extra blockers too with the Cartouches, but I respect keeping Lurrus alive. He's really Lurrus is just really such a great engine for this deck, just being able to recast these auras and creatures.
The S lead and Lurrus combo is really, really hard to deal with from basically any deck, or Selfless Savior to protect it as well. One of the most frustrating things playing against it, it's just like, oh, I can't ever do anything to it. Great.
Yeah, being able to recur Seed of Life's bounty to protect things is really big for this deck too, as we're going to see a block tendered here on the 14/14 Muxus Goblin Grandee by the 1/1. Luris, I expect, will jump in the way of one of these creatures, and we might see a block sack from the Seed. Not even. We're just going straight for damage, down to 6. All right.
What do we do here if we're Austin? This seems like a really, really tough situation with just an active Kranko. Active Kranko here with any haster, you know, just represents an outrageous amount of damage. I mean, we could get 9 goblins next turn, which is adding 18 power to the battlefield. Haste.
Yep. It's going to be very, very tough for Austin to string something together here that keeps him alive in this. So it looks like, Corey, that our undefeated player is going to remain so if nothing dramatic happens here.
Yeah, and Austin has just had Autumn's number, so you know Autumn wants this one.
Oh, yes.
All matches are important at this level of competition, but you know this one means a little extra with their history from the grand finals.
So Curious Obsession was the draw. There we get another draw off the core Spirit Dancer. We have a first striking lifelinker in Luris. I still don't think it's going to be enough, though, just with Kranko pumping out even more goblins next turn.
I don't think so either. I mean, maybe Curious Obsession on the Luris into like Staggering Insight to gain some life, but no, this isn't adding up to me either.
All right, well, let's see what's on top here. Core Spirit Dancer draws a Selfless Savior. It's one more blocker.
That almost covers half the goblins that Kranko is going to make next turn.
Almost. So Luris forced to swing in here to gain some life. But it's looking very dire indeed here for Austin Bursavich.
Yeah. Don't think you would want to block this. Blocking with Goblin Chieftain, you know, negates 4, 9, 18 power. You know, shrinks your board by 18 total power across all your goblins. Probably not what Autumn's going to do, but Autumn, the great player that she is, just slows down in these situations that you're super far ahead, just because this, you know, you got to just think of any single way that Austin could come back and, you know, cover all your bases.
For sure. Arcane Flight being drawn. Still not entirely sure that's going to matter, but next turn, that's going to be pretty useful, as will the Selfless Savior in just getting in the way here.
If there is a tomorrow.
If there is a next turn, yes.
Yeah.
And there's a SRAM off the top. Selfless Savior joins the forces.
And I think it's all over, but the few more clicks and the fancy attack all button from Autumn here.
But as always, very deliberate in her decisions, taking her time, making sure she has this right, because if not, the crackback would be brutal indeed.
Probably, yep. But, you know, any Austin fans out there, have no fear. 6-1 or 6-2 after this. Still a great record. Still poised to make a deep run and top 8 another one of these events. Austin also did hit one of the coolest stats ever with beating Paulo in the last round. Austin hit the highest ELO rating in history.
What?
Yeah, the highest ELO for the old rating system. Really cool stuff, yeah.
That is impressive. He's been on an absolute tear lately. Both of these players have been phenomenal as of late, and we are certainly being treated to a great matchup here between Auras and Goblins. All right, it's time. Let's add some more goblins to this battlefield. Let's make sure he's super dead, says Autumn Burchett. As Kranko is going to fire off 13 more goblins and hit the big red button. Go on, everything in. Here we go.
Tap a creature, add 26 power. No big deal.
Yeah, no biggie. Where's the Settle the Wreckage when you need it? Oh my goodness, that's a 30-30 Muxus.
Austin usually is a fan of the Azorius control decks where we would see Settle the Wreckage, but couldn't stay away
Oh
from
my
blue-white as
goodness.
a color combination.
You know, I'm not the best mathematician in the world, but this looks like a beating. And a good game there from Austin Bursavich. And a good game from Autumn Burchett. And that is going to be another win under the belt of Autumn Burchett. Nicely done.
Wow. -30.